we have a country that's now doing well. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. We have the most activity we've ever had. I'm making a speech tomorrow night, and you'll be hearing me say that. I mean, it's going to be a long speech because we have so much to talk about.
The president tonight will address both chambers of Congress, the U.S. Supreme Court justices, and members of his own cabinet. The most important viewers of the State of the Union address are the American voters. President Trump is only 1 year into his second term with an aggressive policy agenda for the next 3 years. And a recent Fox poll shows his approval rating on par with Presidents Obama and George W. Bush to this point in the second term. A bit earlier this morning, I sat down with the Faulkner-focused voters' voices ahead of President Trump's big speech. Welcome. Let's meet our voters, left to right. First in the front row, we have Dwayne, a Republican and New York committeeman, Maria, a Republican voter, and Kevin, an independent. Left to right in the back now, Dylan is here, Republican, Adam in the center, an independent, and Jay on the end, a Democrat. Again, welcome to all of you. Look, I just got some good notes about what the president will be talking about or focusing on in the State of the Union tonight. And the big theme is going to be affordability. And from the prep that you did with my team, I know that that's a big issue with all of you. Jay, I'm going to come to you first and talk with me specifically about what you'd like to hear from the president on that issue tonight.
What I'd like to hear and what I think is going to happen are two different things. What I'd like to hear is the president say, I understand the tariffs have cost the average American person an additional $1,700 a year. I'm going to rework this. If I'm going to really stay committed to this, I'm going to rework this so that we can lower that number, because it is actually being felt, and it hurts a lot of families.
So as a Democrat, you had affordability, no doubt, on your list already with former President Biden. It was a big issue toward the middle to the end of his term. Inflation at one point was 9.1%. Yes, ma'am. On his watch. We are almost at the target set by the Federal Reserve of 2%. We're still hovering at 2.3. I just put that information out there. Do you want to hear how he gets us closer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I think under the Biden administration, we went from 9.3-ish% to about 3%. So I think that was a great reduction. And I do not think that we have gone as far as we should have. But, you know, as always, I hope that the president is actually listening and actually making plans to address these things.
Maria, what do you want to hear from him on affordability tonight?
I would like to actually hear that the positives. I think we have a lot of distractions that have been going on towards the president. So I feel like he has to come forward and take that energy into that room and not make it sound like a lecture about what's going on in the world, because we are so close with the Democrats right now with just 3 seats to overturn midterm elections. So I feel like he really needs to take that with affordability, what we're going to be doing. Gas prices are down, things are changing. As much as people are very much against the tariffs, they are working for us. So I feel like the affordability, he will address it and that he will make it a positive one for us, because everything that he has said so far for us has come to fruition in some.
So you want a little bit of a victory lap.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I want to show you something. It is a recent Fox News poll showing voters want to see the issues of the economy, jobs, inflation, and prices as the president's top priorities going forward. So you guys are right on key. He obviously hears voters from every ilk because he's going to hit that hard tonight. I want to make a quick shift now, since you kind of went there a little bit, and you were sort of talking about, you know, in the president's speech, what he should do, but what you think he'll do. What about the protesting? Because that's something that Democrats have said that they could do. Dylan, I'm going to come to you. Do you anticipate that Democrats will protest, and what message does that send to the country?
I do anticipate that they will protest. I think the message that they're intending to send is that they're at odds with the president's policy and his administration, but this isn't something new, and I think voters may be tired of the theatrics, and I would say to them, let the president say his message and let the American people decide for themselves after that.
All right, real quickly, at least 36 Democrats in Congress are protesting by skipping the president's address altogether. Some are instead attending a rally today sponsored by the far-left groups Move On and Midas Touch. So just to give you an idea, the protest from them will be they're not going to show up. Adam, I know you have some strong feelings about whether that room breaks out in Democratic protest tonight.
Yeah, I don't expect much of that at all. As you said, there are actually not only the People's State of the Union, but there's yet another protest event simultaneously called the State of the Swamp. And I think most of the representatives who don't want to be there won't be there. And so I don't expect to see much in the way of theatrics.
Do you think that's okay? Are you good with the patriotism that's obviously different for those people?
Yes, I think that there's a way that patriotism as a concept is wielded so that it forces you to behave a certain way when everything in you screams to that what you're seeing up on that podium is just wrong. And then somebody brings down the hammer, oh, but patriotism. I don't see what you're doing for the country by sitting there and applauding dutifully at every third sentence.
I grew up a military brat. I see patriotism as love for the country. It's a little bit different. It's not a concept. It's a dedication and a feeling. But Dwayne, what do you say to Adam on that point?
I think we're just falling into tribalism, to where if you don't agree with the president, it's okay to be disrespectful to the country. It's okay to be disrespectful to the Constitution and not to act to have civility. As a person that was a teacher, students would say things that other students didn't disagree with. I didn't say it was okay to just walk outside the classroom, because we expect a certain decorum and a certain level of class and civility that we all have as Americans. And what we're seeing now with the left is because they didn't get their way, even though Barack Obama deported as many people more than President Trump, even though he talked about tariffs. Now a lot of things that were common sense before they disagree with because it's politically advantageous, they think it's okay to now scream and leave the room. And we're seeing a collapse of what we just consider civility in our country.
Yes,
All right.
I understand, like the civility and decorum of January 6th. That's
Okay.
that was
Or we
great
could talk
civility
about
and decorum.
as many times as agents have came under attack in Minneapolis, and they've done nothing about that.
Agents,
So
yes.
yes,
They're
federal
just
agents, federal agents,
Right, who've
yeah.
been
Who are masked and running around.
right.
Okay,
and-
so I guess
and
it's okay to
brutalizing people who don't deserve it.
How
So
many
as we
people
spoke
have been
before,
killed
it's
how many
not-
people have been killed by illegal immigrants in this country? Does that
Not
matter?
that many.
Okay.
In fact, of all the
We have an Angel Family Day as of yesterday, and so this network, I don't know what the others did, carried live those family members. And so those numbers are detrimental to the reputation of what you're saying.
We're not
Okay,
saying that it
The
doesn't
facts
happen.
don't
So
hold out
then,
what you're saying. Real quickly, Jay, I
families
want to
must
get you
be
in, and then we're going
thrilled
to
when
move
their
on.
family members get killed by white Americans, right? I mean,
Adam, I said you had a lot of strong feelings.
We're not saying that
I
it doesn't
wanna
happen.
hear from Jay.
We're not saying that it doesn't happen. What we're saying is that number is so small that the response is not proportional. The amount of money that's being poured into it is not proportional.
So we had
They are
north of 11 million, some estimates much more than that, come in. Those people should not be in the country if they are here illegally. And I know on the left what many of you will say, and I look at you, Adam, because you say you're a progressive. You say you're independent, but progressive isn't a party. So you're much farther left than the moderates in your party. And you agree with that. That many illegal aliens coming in who were not vetted, this is what we have been handed as a nation. And we must think of it that way, not as an individual party, one way or the other. And if some of us are hurting and being killed, that hurts all of us, right? And so it takes a force to do that. Barack Obama had 57 deaths on his watch and never talked about it in those incidences. You're nodding. You know this. That's a fact, right? Never talked about it.
no, until
5 million
Donald
people
Trump.
illegally
Barack
here
Obama was
left.
the deportingest president we ever had.
Deporting us. I'm going to let you take your vocabulary and challenge it that way. All right, let's talk patriotism in a different way. The U.S. hockey team. Did you guys watch that game? Show of hands? Oh my gosh, it was incredible. I lived in the state of hockey in Minnesota for a while, so maybe I'm overly joyed. But talk about patriotism. They are now going to the White House to see this president, taking some criticism for being invited to the State of the Union tonight. I want to go around and just get an idea. Kevin, I haven't come to you. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, again, it comes back to decorum. If you're invited to come to the State of the Union, to the White House, you have to set politics aside. It's just the way we should function in this country, and decorum has been in check for a while, I think. So I think it's okay that they go. You know, there shouldn't be a debate about that. I think it really comes back to our start of our conversation, which is about the economy. Everybody's focused on that, and what are we going to do about that? Healthcare, food, everything is going
And
up.
he'll get to that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the hockey team. Maria.
I think my favorite part towards the end, I just caught a clip of it, I did not actually get to watch the game, was when they went and got the children onto their teammates who had passed away from a drunk driver. They made sure that those kids were actually involved and made that a huge part of them, you know, that just said that we're one, we're together, we're here, and I think it's a great thing that they're going to the White House for this. Outside, we do have a lot of sports, and it's a big part of America, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, hockey. Absolutely, if you're invited, you should go.
Dylan.
Well, first of all, what a game. And
I know, right?
Second of all, I think this, going back to an earlier point, may dampen some of the ability for the Democrats to protest, because we're bringing in American patriots, and I think that you know, to celebrate America, especially on the eve of having won such a big game, which should unite us left and right.
Do you think it will, Jay?
I don't think it will unite us, but I think that they're
In that room, you don't think they'll get a standing O?
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm talking about the country at large. I don't think it will unite us, and but in that room, yes. And I don't have any issue with them going. As mentioned, like, if you're invited to the State of the Union, and you can put the politics aside, if you have adverse, go. If you cannot, because you are so inclined, or you feel that that is your patriotic duty to not go, don't. But I don't have any feeling either way towards them going or not.
All right, show of hands, who's watching the State of the Union tonight? Oh my goodness. You know, well, that brought you all together. Look at that, everybody agreed on that. Great to have you all. Thank you. Voters' Voice is always a pleasure.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.